Hey, g'day. Welcome to the ATP Project with your hosts Matt and Steve today. No Jeff, and I can't think of any good reason why.
Why?
So no, he's just in the room next door.
Yeah.
So we need him for some sensible stuff.
I think it was when we said we're going to talk about yeasty stuff. Oh, no, he goes, I'm out of that. I think that was the whole thing. So
I don't know what that's about.
We're talking about yeast today, isn't it? Yeast.
I never listened to our podcasts because I did once. And I thought I sounded like a drunk 12-year-old, and I spent the whole time going, man, you should have said this, you should have said that, I can't believe you didn't do that, stop interrupting people, and all those sort of things I kept thinking, so I never listened to them. Someone told me I had to listen to the Vision Precision one the other day if I hadn't. Steve, I didn't know you sang.
Oh, what?
You sang a bit, and then...
Did I in that?
Yeah, the intro was you singing.
But I only have eyes for you.
And then people come to me and said, is this a thing you do now? And I was like, I don't know.
That's how I paid my way through
like
that
angel.
job. Well, of course it was.
And then all of a sudden, Jeff comes on and does this beautiful introduction with his polished voice, like a lounge singer that's talking, and did it really well. And then you come in and you talk really adult, like they do on Play School.
I don't like the sound.
And then this drunk 12-year-old pipes up and starts speaking rubbish and interrupting people again. It's really bloody embarrassing. I don't think I'm ever going to listen to one again. No,
it's bad. Beck, my wife, listens to them and I hear them around the house. I'm going, why am I hearing myself talk?
Oh, my voice sounds wonderful inside my head. Like I just think big flappy ears wreck the whole sound. You guys should hear it from the inside. It's so much better.
Yeah, well, I'm a bit deaf from the years of singing, actually.
Yeah, well, lucky you.
No, not
to listen to me all day.
Oh.
Now, we're going to do a podcast today on yeasty stuff, like you said.
Yeah.
So we're going to talk about yeast, but in particular, I want to talk about the different forms of Saccharomyces. And people see them all the time, but they don't realise what they're looking at sometimes. And it can get a little bit confusing because I use just that same word, but some of them are live, some are dead, some might be nutritional yeast, some might be probiotic forms. We don't actually sell Saccharomyces ourselves, but it's something I do recommend a lot of times. So I want to tell people how to do it properly. I want to show people some of the benefits of it. And man, it's actually looks like it could potentially be a really important missing link between the Mediterranean paradoxes and traditional medicine systems and just traditional food, like well-made food, homegrown food. We're actually talking about Saccharomyces is the baker's yeast, the brewer's yeast, but it's also called SB in regards to if it's in a probiotic, which is a very abbreviated for Saccharomyces boulardii, of course.
Boulardii, yeah.
But so we're going to talk about these different things and how to pick the right product for your particular needs, and also to let people know just how cool some of these things are. And there's not a huge amount of side effects that I know of, so we'll go through and talk about that. It's a really cool thing that people can do themselves and add into their protocol and could make a massive difference. And in some cases, I honestly believe this particular yeast, whether it's there or not, might be the difference between why someone benefits from a particular diet and another person doesn't.
Yeah, and as you know, it's next year is the anniversary, the 100-year anniversary of Henry Bullard discovering, guess which strain of Saccharomyces?
Boulardii?
Yeah.
But, I didn't know that.
Oh, okay.
It's 100 years. This podcast next year?
Yeah, well, we should do it next year.
Well, what we'll do then is we'll work out another plan for next year for his birthday.
Yeah, Henry.
Henry.
Birthday.
We might release a product called HB.
HB, that's it.
Henry Boulardii.
That's his name, Henry Bullard.
Yeah, that's amazing.
Yeah, he's a scientist, French scientist.
Next year.
Yeah, he discovered that in China. He basically found that, if you want a bit of history lesson.
Didn't sound very Chinese.
No, but he discovered that in China that there was all these people getting cholera infection, except the people that were eating mangosteen fruits and all this sort of stuff. So he isolated this stuff off the fruit that we now know as Saccharomyces boulardii or bullard, and so he went, this is the stuff, and he isolated it, and no one got cholera when they ate this stuff.
That's really, really interesting.
Yeah, it's
especially if you look at the fact that mangosteen is a very popular supplement, talking about a lot of its health benefits.
Yeah.
I wonder how many of those health benefits were related to the natural colony of Saccharomyces that might be living on the outside of it.
Absolutely. Well, it's from lychees too.
Yeah. So, oh, really?
Yeah.
Oh, then, so where else do you find it?
They're the only two places, but basically on the outsides of and grapes. You can get it on grapes too.
Yeah, right.
So this is the weird thing. This is a classic. I know it's a bit of history, and people want to know about the biochemistry.
No, I love this stuff.
The history is that there was someone who said, "Hey, look, these guys are eating this stuff, and they're not getting sick, and these guys are not eating that stuff, and they're getting sick." Cholera in this case, which is explosive diarrhea stuff and sickness. But so he sort of thought, well, what's going on here? And he worked out it was this yeast, isolated it, and there we have it.
Is that right?
Yeah.
Now, with that yeast, we'll talk a little bit more about its stability and when it's alive and when it's dead and all that sort of stuff. But I can imagine making an extract from a mangosteen or making a lychee product and marketing that towards. I think they're going to kill off all the yeast, aren't they?
They are, yeah.
So you're not going to get the yeast on a mangosteen extract, but if you were to pick up a mangosteen fruit and eat it, you're going to get it naturally occurring on the outside.
It lives at 37.
I mean, this is just quickly jumping over to another little obsession of mine, but I can imagine the pesticides and that sort of stuff would kill it. So I can't imagine that.
Yeah.
So if you are looking for the health benefits of a fruits like the mangosteens and the lychees or something like that, you'd have to go at organic, certified organic, because otherwise it's going to kill the yeast off the skin. Because it'd be on the skin, wouldn't it?
It is on the skin.
Same with lychees?
Yep.
You don't eat that skin.
No, but it's on the outside
and
of lychees.
it gets all over your hands and then you're picking the skin and then...
Oh, yeah, it gets in.
And then the Saccharomyces is capable of living and colonising inside of us.
It is. The boulardii is,
but
the Cerevisiae is not. That's the one that... Cerevisiae means, in Hebrew, if you want to know, this is beer. So,
right.
Yeah, that's where they get the name from.
So that's brewer's yeast?
Yeah.
And boulardii baker's yeast?
Well, you can use baker's yeast.
Well, let's go take a step back. Tell us the difference between boulardii and Cerevisiae and where we'd find them.
All right. If you look in the medical literature, you'll find that the boulardii is actually a subspecies of the Cerevisiae. They believe that's where it should be in, but we're going to separate them because there's different roles, particularly in the body.
Okay.
The main difference between them is one that dies at 30 degrees and one that can live above 37.
So the body's sitting at, on average, 36.8 or something like that.
Yep.
So one of them's going to live inside us and the other one's going to die inside us.
Yeah, which is not a bad thing. We're not saying that Cerevisiae is a bad one because it does have some health benefits.
Well, we know dead bacteria, and in particular dead yeasts and those sort of things, they have a good role for stimulating the immune system.
Correct.
And if you have a dead yeast running through stimulating the cytokines, which are the chemical messages from the immune system, because your immune system can't afford to wait to see if it's alive or dead.
Correct.
They just see the cell fragment. That induces an immune response or chemical messages to go out and fight it off.
Yeah.
Now, if it's a yeast that they're sending messages out to fight off, well, that displaces other yeasts such as Candida and other maybe black moldy aspergillus things that could overgrow or something, But mainly the activation of the immune system by dead bacteria is handy because those immune cells and those immune resources are not wasted killing off live yeast.
Yes, exactly right.
They're actually then, or not the live yeast you've supplemented from baker's yeast or the Cerevisiae, but instead it might go and attack things like Candida.
Yep.
So is that how it did cholera as well? By stimulating the immune system?
Oh, absolutely. There's many mechanisms. Firstly, it's anti-inflammatory in the gut. So this we're talking about the boulardii here. The living inside us one. Yeah. That one actually kills toxins. It destroys biofilm of things like Candida.
So the Cerevisiae, so it dies at 30 degrees. So the Cerevisiae is used to make beer. So that's the one we often find in beer and bread.
And that sort of stuff. And of course, you let the bread. That's why you have to let the bread rest at room temperature. Have you ever made bread? Yeah.
So they prove it. Prove it.
Yeah, whatever they use, and it makes it also grows a lot of folate in there too.
Yeah. So hang on. Let's just. Wow, man, there's so much cool info. Hang on. So Cerevisiae, used in the baking and the brewing process. It then makes bubbles. Doesn't it? So, and that's how it makes the bread rise.
It gives off a gas of carbon dioxide when it metabolizes.
And it feeds on the sugar?
Feeds off sugar, and the other byproduct of that is ethanol.
Okay. So that's why it can be used to make beer.
Yeah. Wine.
And so we're looking at those. So they're feeding on there. They're making bubbles. Okay. So making bubbles that makes your bread fluff up or makes your beer bubbly up and taste better too. And then creates alcohol in that process as well.
That's a side effect. That's just
side effect. That's the only effect worth drinking beer for. That's like that bloody light beer, remember that Monty Python? They had that Monty Python sketch, and for those people outside of Australia, just need to, while we're talking about beer, there's a very important message from Australia to the rest of the world: is that we don't drink Fosters.
No,
no one drinks Fosters in Australia. And there's that Monty Python sketch when they said that they're talking about beer and that sort of stuff, and they're saying light beer is like making love in a canoe. It's fucking close to water. So when we get to, that's all right.
Yeah. The red pen's out, unfortunately.
No, we have that. So basically, so we get the Cerevisiae. It goes into our body. It dies off. When dead yeast runs through our body, it stimulates immune cells, and those immune cells can actively kill off other yeasts.
Of course it does.
What's interesting, the reason why I want to make that point is, remember all the anti-candida diets, or when someone tells you, I've got a yeast infection, or I've got a yeast problem or a fungal problem, they're told to avoid yeasty foods. They're told to avoid the yeast. But I like one of the terms that you said once, Steve-O, you used the term sticky foods.
Oh, yeah.
So what the problem is they tell them to avoid yeast, because yeasty foods like breads and that sort of stuff, because they don't want the yeast in the bread living inside the person.
Yeah. It's not the yeast, it's the
sugars. So the sugars feed fungi and candidas. Same with you got these instructions saying to avoid mushrooms. You can't eat fungus when you've got a fungus infection. You're not growing button mushrooms in your belly. Not even, So
we talked about that, the old days of Naturopathy College in the 1847s when we studied. It was pretty bad. I mean, we were told that and we believed it because we thought, okay.
I mean, if you've been told you've got a yeast infection or you've got a yeast intolerance or you've got fungus and yeast overgrowth, we're not talking about an overgrowth of bread and beer in your tummy. We're not talking about an overgrowth of button mushrooms or oyster mushrooms or something. We're talking about candidas and that in particular, and they feed on the same things as other yeasts and fungus feed on, which is why they tell you to avoid the breads, but it's because of avoiding the sugar.
Yes.
Because what a lot of people used to do in my clinic is go looking for yeast-free breads or something like that and eating all those, or I'm not going to eat bread because it's yeasty, I'm going to eat pasta. So I'm just letting people know that's not what we're talking about. But in fact, it might actually be the opposite.
It is the opposite.
Actually supplement with yeast, you might actually prevent yeast infections.
It's brilliantly so. Let's talk yeast. Let's talk about Candida albicans. That's the elephant in the room.
Yep.
I've got a paper here published 2009 that says that the antagonistic effects of the Saccharomyces boulardii on Candida albicans, and it stops its adhesion and biofilm formation. So this stuff that you can actually supplement.
So boulardii lives inside us.
Yes.
So we can supplement with boulardii.
Absolutely. It's very good for the gut.
And that's what, and normally so that you can get shelf stable boulardii and that sort of stuff. What temperature does it live to?
37.
So it'll survive inside our body, which gets typically to 37.
Absolutely.
And I asked the weird question before, what if we have a fever? And it goes over. Because what's interesting about the purpose of the fever is sometimes to get us to a body temperature where the bugs can't live.
Yeah, viruses particularly.
They can't live at a certain temperature, but also for every degree we go up, our immune system goes up a certain amount. But you also said that the actual stomach contents where these things live, the watery content where the stomach, where these bugs are in that internal milieu, I don't know how to say that word, it may not actually change temperature.
Say vascular. In other words, no blood vessels going into your gut, into your intestines.
It may not be heating up past there and those things may survive. But I was just curious about that.
It's just by interleukin-2 which drives up the temperature and that it is not, it goes through the bloodstream.
So when we supplement with boulardii, it's in one that's been shelf stabled, that has been preserved and looked after and transported at a reasonable temperature, because some of those transportation can be killers and that sort of stuff. So if you get a good product that's live and that sort of stuff, and they've been managed to stay alive, they're capable of coming through, surviving bile and acid and that sort of stuff to get into your intestine and live.
Very stable.
And then once they're living there, they can actually colonize and grow. And you're saying they can get in the way of the biofilm. So the biofilm's like the easiest biofilm that people see is like dental plaque. So as an example, so they can go through and they colonize into the gut wall through a process known as competitive exclusion. They can stop infections from such things as candida. Normally our other gut bacteria would prevent against candida overgrowth through competitive exclusion, but this is why candida comes after antibiotics, hey?
Yes. Because it does. It kills it. It also, what comes after antibiotics, while we're on the antibiotic topic, is good old Clostridia.
So that's what antibiotic-associated diarrhea is usually Clostridium.
And I've got a paper here that says, and this is how important this one is, it's probably the number one health condition in hospitals in the Western civilization. I'll read it. It says, C. diff infection occurs mainly in hospitalised receiving antibiotic treatment, has become one of the most urgent threats in hospitals in the Western world. This is a paper published in the European Journal of Clinical Microbiology, and this is 2018 paper.
And one of the other big problems at hospitals, like other resistant bugs that are forming biofilms on the catheters and other equipment and everything.
Big time. This basically killed it by about a third. It knocked out all these infections by a third. Now,
remember in the earlier days when we worked a lot more with probiotics and other companies, there was that whole campaign pushing towards pharmacists and doctors that when you prescribe antibiotics to give probiotics with it. But we always like, okay, so when do we do that? Or how? Because if we take an antibiotic, it's typically to kill a bacteria. So what it does is it kills bacteria.
Beautifully.
So to use a probiotic bacteria supplement while taking antibiotics to prevent Clostridium and Candida, you're wasting the antibiotic killing the bacteria that you're supplementing instead of the infectious bacteria, and you're wasting your bacteria probiotic at the same process. And because the antibiotic's killing your probiotic, the likelihood of it actually having the ability to do competitive exclusion and prevention of candidas is purely by cytokine modulation, not by biofilm, not by adhesion, not by competitive exclusion. It's actually antibiotics killing the bacteria, those bacteria adding to the lipopolysaccharide load, driving up the immune system to kill off things, and hopefully that might include Candida and Clostridium. So a better scenario or a better thing would be to use a yeast, Saccharomyces boulardii, when you're taking antibiotics to go through, because the antibiotics aren't going to kill it, are they?
No.
Antibiotics don't kill the yeast.
No, it doesn't kill the yeast at all.
Which is why Candida thrives during antibiotics. So if we use Saccharomyces boulardii, you can use that the whole way through the antibiotic. In fact, you could even take an antibiotic and an SB at exactly the same time without having a problem, rather than with the bacteria scenario. It never really worked because we were always like, well, don't want to waste your antibiotics, so try to take your probiotic away, but it doesn't matter because it's a steady blood level, and then we go, oh, we'll just wait till after it. But then by then they've already got Candida and then onto a antifungal. Or in hospital with Clostridium. So we need to prescribe, so pharmacists and doctors and anyone out there that's been using antibiotics, especially people that are using long-term antibiotics for predisposition to urinary tract infections or acne or something like that, you need to be on a SB supplement that's one that's live, possibly. Some of them are shelf stable. They can stay fine on the shelf. A lot of them put them in the fridge. The ones in the fridge are usually mixed with other probiotics. And it's put in the fridge because they need to keep the other lactobacillus in that cold.
Absolutely. And it's even worse than that because you got a lot of people get, like, for example, thrush. After they have antibiotics. I'm just thinking typically you get a vaginal yeast growth, and that's usually Candida. Well, that happens so often. Now, this is a study done on C. diff, so that's different. That's a bad one for elderly people. They basically can die because they get dehydrated and die. But and my wife, who's a nurse, so I said, do you guys do anything like this? And she just looked at me this morning and laughed. I was telling her about the podcast, and I said, this is about your hospitals and what you do there. And it's like, no, they don't even consider this sort of stuff. Yet these papers are out here. One of the greatest health challenges can be knocked down by a third by a simple yeast. Healthy yeast. But let's go back to these women with they always say, I've developed a Candida infection. Well, you've already got the Candida.
Everyone's got Candida infection.
You already got it. It just overgrows it. So this knocks that out.
By not allowing it to overgrow.
And it also...
And by filling up the spaces.
And also by dephosphorylation. And I won't get too nerdy about that.
No, go nerdy, man. Dephosphorylation, you're trying to seduce me, Steve-O, with those sort of words.
Well, when you phosphorylate enzymes, it actually makes things activate, like phosphoinositide 3 kinase in your second messages when you're doing glucose disposal. So anyway, phosphates make things happen. This dephosphorates the whole process, so you end up with a dead C. diff.
Is that right?
Yeah, that's one of the mechanisms. So if you want to,
deactivates them and sort of stuff.
And candida, the way it kills candida is it also stops it adhering to the gut wall.
Yeah.
So it just goes off and down the toilet it
Can't
goes.
grow and
Can't grow,
spread.
can't thrive.
And then also too, because it is a yeast, but it's not one that's going to infect into our body. So but the immune system doesn't know that.
No.
So the immune system's sampling it because it doesn't care. It just rips up the cell wall and finds markers and says another yeast, go and smack it. It doesn't care if it's a fungi or a fungi. No, it's going to kill it anyway.
Absolutely. And it reduces inflammation in the gut wall. So, like all those, inflammatory bowel diseases, it's fantastic. It knocks out tumor necrosis factor.
Yeah, well, they all contribute to the leakiness and the permeability that
great for
makes the immune system go. And also that's how they spread. It's really cool. You look at photos of candida and online and that, like microscope ones, not vaginal thrush photos.
No.
But you go through and actually have a look under an electron microscope and you see these little single cell organisms grow on these roots that embed into the wall and shoot these little eggs off it. It's a complicated little thing, but if you can get in early and stop these little things from the yeast, the single cell yeast sticking or the spores from sticking to the membrane, then you can stop that infection and then you can stop the growth and then you can stop it from forming into a fungal colony, which is pretty much like a pile of mushrooms growing into your body. So this might be what they saw when they told you to avoid mushrooms with candida. I don't
know. Some old natural medicine things are really quite scary.
But also too, you also got to realise that if someone's got some sort of a reaction, so if someone's had an overgrowth of fungi and yeast for a period of time, they do get a bit of an immune memory to it. So sometimes when they eat yeasty foods, they'll get an immune reaction to those yeasty foods, like a bloating or a fullness or an intolerance style reaction. So sometimes if you go back looking at symptom pictures and elimination diets, and you can imagine how they got to this point by saying, well, actually, when you eat sugar, you're going to get bloating and you're going to get fullness because you've got bugs inside you that's creating this reaction. But actually, I've also noticed through your case history, when you eat other yeasty foods like breads or Vegemites and those sort of things and beer, you also get the similar reaction. Therefore, they must be growing inside you. But no, it's not. It's actually just a similar immune reaction or a reaction to the amount of sugar contained. So
you've got to go off the Vegemite. It's not the Vegemite itself, as you say. It's what do people put Vegemite on? For those people who don't know what Vegemite is, it's a black, salty, yeasty.
Beautiful, amazing stuff.
Oh,
I love it, Steve.
I'm a peanut butter man.
Yeah, me too. But it doesn't matter. You can't pick and choose.
Yeah, I know. No, it's just a blackie. It's very strange black paste. But it's full of yeast.
It's wonderful. It's full of nutrients and vitamins. It is full of nutrients. It tastes like nectar of the. I don't know.
A black
I
salty
really
yeast.
Bloody like it.
Oh no, some people love it. Yeah.
Yeah,
but no, it's good. No, it's not my favourite. I have to admit, I'm not really an Aussie, obviously.
No.
But look, there are a few trials for your bowels.
I don't know if we can still hang out, Steve.
No, it's terrible, isn't it?
This is a little bit weird. Now, actually, while we're talking about this, okay, just for people to understand how deluded this guy is. I went fishing with Steve on the weekend.
Yes.
So this is the guy that, I'm a peanut butter man.
Yeah.
And Vegemite, Okay, so Steve-O, we're out fishing. Hey, Matt, would you like a sandwich? Yeah. Why not? So this Steve-O gets out his homemade gluten bread.
Weird bread, yeah.
And puts it onto his bait board where we've been cutting up the bait. And he says, it's already got peanut butter on it.
Yeah.
And I said, you little bloody ripper, I love peanut butter. He said, so let me finish it off for you.
Yes.
He then slices up with our bait knife on the bait board some tomato chunks. And puts it on there fine, which is great. And I'm thinking peanut butter, tomato, this could work. I'm into satay. Yeah. I'm like a satay fan.
Yeah.
So then the next step was getting out a tin of tomato-flavoured oily tuna.
Yeah, we didn't catch
which he then tipped onto the sandwich. So it's gluten sour bread. Would it be? That's the way I describe gluten sour cardboard
it's
bread.
It's a weird bread that it's not technically a bread. It's
Steve.
protein
it's
and
not
fibre.
Bread, Steve. It's aerated gluten.
Yeah. It's
with
pretty,
a crust.
Yeah.
And then we've got the peanut butter smear. But I think what I love about peanut butter the most is the copious amounts of butter I add with it. But then I think the tomato, I got a feeling it might have just been the tomato flavoured tuna that kind of tipped me over the edge. And I'm a very polite person, but I'm also very...
you were very polite that day.
Well, fucking if I'm not polite to you, there's a damn bloody good reason, because I am a nice guy. So if you see me not being nice to someone, there's a reason for that. And it might be the fact that they sabotaged my peanut butter sandwich with a tin of bloody oily tomatoey me tuna. That was the weirdest thing I ever ate. And I tried, like, took a couple of bites.
You're very polite.
And you even said, what do you think of that? And I was like, oh, Steve, I honestly don't think I could eat this. And what spun me out, the other guy that was seasick and was lying down seasick going, I'll have it. I was just like, you freak. He said, I love this. Is this one of Steve-O's special sandwiches? And I was just like, this is the most disgusting. And I had to, I'll be honest, I thought that was the most disgusting thing I'd ever eaten. Then he had this crazy idea about, hey, would you just like a peanut butter sandwich? Steve, that sounds wonderful. Thanks, mate.
It's quite funny because and going off topic a little bit, but every week I bring in a loaf of bread for everyone here. And I started off doing that, and it's the weird bread that I make. And I thought everyone was just being polite, saying, oh, yeah, it's nice. We like your bread. And I'm going, no, you don't. It's just healthy shit.
I'm honest about this
stuff.
Yeah.
But like, Mick had a big slice of it yesterday.
Oh, yeah, no, they genuinely love it.
They do it. Go through it. But it's like, I just can't believe it because it's a weird tasting thing.
Yeah.
But you're so polite about it. It really, I know this is a weird thing to eat.
Yeah, but it's very strange.
It's weird.
So, yeah, Vegemite. Don't trust Steve-O's judgment about Vegemite.
But on good news with yeast. So
back to the
it'll help your irritable bowel syndrome if you've got Saccharomyces. So the boulardii helps diarrhea predominant irritable bowel syndrome dramatically.
Yeah,
in a randomized trial. But I've got a weird one here. This is a weird one published in the International Journal of Cardiology.
Oh yeah.
I'm thinking, okay, what the hell's yeast got to do with that?
Yeah.
Well, the title says probiotic theory with Saccharomyces boulardii for heart failure patients, a randomized trial, and what they did was they gave people with heart failure, that's when your heart is failing, I'll keep it simple, for multiple reasons. A lot of people die this way. And what happens is the left side of your heart, which is the type of your heart that pumps the blood around your body. So it's the most, it's all important, but that's a really important one to get around your body. That just fails and doesn't pump as hard and you die. And you get filled up your lungs with liquid because the right side fails, but the left side fails. And what they found was the ejection fraction when they had these Saccharomyces increased.
So it makes the heart muscle for the left ventricle more powerful.
Yes, in failing heart.
Yeah.
So it's going like this, you give them the Saccharomyces and it improved.
Yeah, right.
It didn't just go, it'll stop it actually improved.
What?
I mean, how weird is that?
Yeah, because it does stuff with cholesterol and that too, doesn't it?
It does. It reduces your VLDL cholesterol, the very bad cholesterol.
At the start in my weird-ass intro, one of them, I think I mentioned, because I had a couple of cracks at that. I forgot what I was talking about. But I mentioned that I believe that this yeast could be the missing link between a lot of dietary benefits that we see, like the Mediterranean diet and all that sort of stuff, because there's this bug, what it's capable of doing when it lives inside you, when you give it certain food, it makes its own enzymes to digest things. And it's not us. You got to remember, it's something else. It's something else that's chosen to partner with us, or reside within us, or something like that. So this particular yeast has the ability of getting nutrients from just simple food and fuel and making things that we can't make, such as folate and B12.
Yeah.
It also has this freaky ability when living inside us of converting oleic acid, which is the active ingredient in olive oil, into alpha-linoleic acid, which is our omega-6, and then through that delta-12 desaturase. So we can actually convert oleic acid to omega-6. Now, the omega-6 and omega-3 oils, we're told, are the essential fatty acids because we can't make them.
We can't make them.
But
that's an interesting statement.
But if you have a look at a lot of these traditional foods like breads and fermented stuff like grapes, this stuff colonizes naturally on the grape skins and is a big part of the fermentation process of that. But we've got to understand that there's a lot of traditionally made foods that might allow this yeast to live inside us. And you can imagine that if you're eating good quality breads and having good quality wines as part of a Mediterranean diet or lifestyle or something like that, they supplying Saccharomyces boulardii plus the other fruits. It's in their environment, okay? So it's naturally in the environment. It's part of the fermentation process naturally.
Yes.
So it's naturally everywhere. It naturally then can live inside these people. And then when they then go and dip their bread into some olive oil and eat it and sip on their wine, the yeast in there can convert the olive oil into an omega-3.
Yeah, absolutely. And then this is the crazy thing because
so they can go oleic acid to alpha-linoleic.
Yes.
and alpha-linoleic all the way through to linolenic. So you can take plant oils and make it into fish oil,
absolutely,
which looks after your cholesterol, looks after your brain, prevents cardiovascular disease.
That's exactly right.
Through that mechanism. And now you think about folate and B12 for homocysteine metabolism, they're so important, red blood cell production, all of that sort of stuff. If we look at the fact that there are people in the world that do not eat adequate levels of omega-3 and omega-6 oils.
Correct.
Yet they seem to be fine. They have them.
Yeah.
Okay. And what it might be is this other little bug that's chosen to live inside you that creates enzymes that you can't create to create nutrients that you can't possibly create.
Exactly.
To keep you alive so we can travel.
Exactly.
Well, I mean, I don't know why else they would be doing this for us, other than us helping them
move.
Travel.
Yeah. Well, we are what they call vectors for these bugs.
Yeah.
Now, what Matt says is really quite scientifically fascinating, because if you test, and I'm going to say the human body, and exclude the bugs in the gut, we can't make these essential fatty acids. That's why they're essential for us.
Yeah, exactly.
We, the human body, can't. But these bugs can. These bugs can live inside us. So on our behalf, these bugs can make essential fatty acids, which therefore makes them not that essential fatty acid.
And like, if you have a look at the whole microbiome itself, like we expanded out 100 times the genetic material.
There's tons,
Where we have 100,000 years for us to change ours because of our life cycle, through generation to generation. These things are reproducing and changing and mutating at such a fast rate. Within a day,
they
can actually modify to help their survival.
Yes.
So them working with us is really the missing link. But if you have a look at everyone talking about Mediterranean diets, a lot of these traditional diets, we're talking about all these fermentations of foods and things like that. We're looking at all these different strains. But the fact is these particular yeast, it can explain why foods were great at one stage and we could just eat a certain way with breads and wines and alcohols and our oils and all that sort of stuff and maintain a certain amount of health. But now we're living in an age with pesticides and fertilizers and over-processed foods and all that sort of stuff and people being over smart, not letting just things naturally ferment so, and then also this obsession that we've been through with the hygiene hypothesis and making sure that we understand what's growing and stuff and sterilizing things. So
radiate it,
you can see this missing link in the sense that if I was to now go to my local grocery stores and just follow a Mediterranean diet as listed in the book, without taking my 3-hour lunch break siestas and without actually having the traditional bugs and made in a traditional area at a particular room temperature. Because room temperature varies depending on the country. Australian room temperature might be very different to the room temperature in France or the room temperature in somewhere through the Mediterranean or something like that. So I always look at those sort of things, different humidity, different that. They all totally change the bugs. So the Mediterranean diet followed using traditional Mediterranean methods, eaten in a Mediterranean style, may have a totally different effect there than in Australia.
Yeah, incredibly.
What we might need to do in Australia is go back and go, okay, so I can do that, but I might need to go back and take some more Saccharomyces to make sure I've got some live bugs in here to process these foods properly.
There's so much benefit to taking those bugs.
I was just thinking, like these might be semi-essential. Like we talk about essential nutrients. They may not be essential nutrients at all. It's conditionally essential depending on what bugs live inside you, is my point.
Right.
So this is the thing. Someone may not need to ever supplement with these particular oils or something, like may find no benefit from omega-3 fish oil at all. Or olive oil in particular. They might find no benefit from that. It might all be purely to do with the bugs that live inside your gut.
Well, absolutely.
How to process them.
Also, humans can make oleic acid by delta-9 desaturase from saturated fats.
Yep.
So we can do that.
So we can,
the human body, not the bugs.
We can take a saturated fat out of a meat or a nut and a seed, and our body has the enzymes to convert it to the same chemical that we'd find in a beautiful olive oil.
Oleic acid, correct.
Yeah.
Which is an omega-9.
What we can't do inside our body is convert omega-9 oleic acid through to the omega-6s and 3s.
Correct.
And in fact, we have to. This is why we talk about the essential fatty acids. They only talk about sixes and 3s as the essential fatty acids, because everything else we can make from other precursors.
Yeah.
But knowing that the difference between that these enzymes that are missing in us is actually in a compartment in us, like it's isolated into our gut. Yeah. So eating these foods and having these bugs in our guts means we are capable of converting it through, which is why we see different people in different colonies or tribes in different regions of the world. You know, like someone in the deep inland that's got no access to seafood.
Yeah.
I mean, they live like...
They're fine.
Yeah. Their body has a way of balancing out their oils. And then conversely, the Eskimos and that sort of stuff, which don't maybe grow a lot of nuts and seeds and fruits and vegetables for the oils, and they predominantly...
Too cold for nuts
Yeah,
down
so
there,
they eat all of their stuff. Yeah, the nuts shrink.
They do, yeah.
That
Absolutely. That sort of weather, yeah.
So what you'll find is with the... Eskimos, they can have a diet predominantly based on the fish oils, but still be able to generate the oils they need for their eye structures that other people would get from nuts and seeds because of the conversion. And maybe it's the bacteria in their gut that's the missing link.
Yeah.
What are you laughing at?
No, just
nuts in your eyes or something?
I was just trying to think about...
You imagined a Roman helmet, didn't you?
Exactly. Couldn't help myself. I find it amazing that you know, like take the Aboriginals in Central Australia, which are probably maybe 2,000 to 3,000 kilometres from the coast, you know, right in all directions. Yeah. They'd never be exposed to seafood, ever. No. And inland fish would be in desert. So, and they thrived.
Yeah, yeah.
They thrived. So there's something more into this, and these sort of bugs, I think, are a part of it. And making essential omega, you know, linoleic and linolenic acid from these bugs, not from the body, because we'll get hate mail about that because, no, they're essential, they have to be eaten. Well, we're talking about a bug. It's a different genetic material.
Yeah.
So, you know, you talk about the 100 times genes. The way, if you really want to change your genes in a good or bad way, which you want to do, if you took one antibiotic, you would change your genes dramatically. You'd wipe out billions of bugs.
Yes, exactly.
You took a vancomycin, a poorly absorbed one, it goes through your guts, it'll just kill. And so your genes can change.
You get Clostridium, you need new genes.
Exactly. Yeah, you get new genes.
Different type of genes, JEANS.
Yeah, that's right, those genes.
That's clean, man.
That's
Stop red penning everything.
No, he's red penning that one. I don't know. Is explosive diarrhea we can talk about? I guess we can, can't we?
I don't think it's offending any particular group.
No, it's not. Exactly. So that's that hospital study. Yeah. Here's that study showing its hype can help reduce cholesterol, and that's interesting because, you know, cholesterol treatments have had a bit of a, you know, with the statin drugs.
So can you supplement with, like, can I go and buy brewer's yeast and baker's yeast and just supplement with that?
You can.
Yeah, and it's alive and all that sort of stuff.
It will be until you eat it.
Yeah, yeah,
and that's fine. It'll die in your guts, but it doesn't matter.
Why?
It's still beneficial.
So you're talking about Cerevisiae now. So if I go and buy those bread rising yeasty stuff, so that'll be Saccharomyces cerevisiae. Yeah. It's alive for the process of proving the bread.
Yeah,
but the moment I cook that dough, it's going to be hotter than 37 degrees, so I'm going to cook it out. Hey?
Absolutely, it'll die, and that's fine.
But what if I eat it?
Or without killing it. It's fine. Brewer's yeast is a great
it'll grow inside you?
No, it won't grow inside you, but it'll be a great source of things like, for example, it makes a lot of folate.
Yeah, right.
And those sorts of things. And in the olden days, when you couldn't get selenium in Australia, I was getting brewer's yeast that was enriched with selenium.
So that
was the loophole in the law that...
well, that's not such a bad thing because from my understanding with that, there's different ways of doing it, of course, but you can either make a slurry or a cup of tea or something like with nutrients, throw in some single-cell organisms and they soak it up and they get deactivated, meaning we kill them with heat, sterilise them, and then they sell them as a nutritional, they measure the nutrients in them. Now, what's interesting about that is, so for example, if I take a multivitamin capsule myself, and in that capsule I read it says, you know, thiamine hydrochloride, pyridoxine hydrochlorides, and that sort of stuff. That's because it's a powdered product, and they got to stabilise those vitamins into a salty powdered form or something to be able to make it into a tablet. But when I take it inside my body, they dissociate and then you get certain things. So when they make these yeasts, so they're dissolving all these nutrients into the water, they're putting these yeasts in it. As the yeast suck it in, it's not just a physical process of absorbing it like a sponge.
No.
It's actually, they actually feed on it and convert it. And in many cases, they'll also put in other substrates, meaning they'll put in some amino acids and some sugars and things like that, so they can utilize the raw ingredients they need to make more vitamins.
Yeah, well, the Cerevisiae makes heaps of folates.
So with selenium, for example, you put selenomethionine, or what would you in the water? They add selenocysteine or selenomethionine.
Probably sodium selenite, the cheap one.
Exactly, because as it absorbs it changes it into its organic form, which would be the
selenomethionine. Yeah,
so the other way, the wrong way around. So sodium. So you make a sodium selenite.
Yeah, the cheap one.
The cheap and nasty one. When you feed that to a yeast, it actually utilizes that selenium, incorporates it into its tissues, which is why it changes it into its organic form. So it's not just a sneaky way of doing selenium, it's actually a better way of doing selenium.
It is a better way of doing selenium.
So with other nutrients, so we can create a lot of other nutrients from these yeast as well.
Sure.
Now, some instances you can just kind of soak in a synthetic blend into it. The problem with that is if they not converting that pyridoxine hydrochloride into the 9 forms of B6 that we would find in an organism, then we're just stuck with the wrong forms.
Exactly.
But, the other thing is what we're talking about is other nutrients. So it does convert them. So folic acid, if I was to put folic acid into a water and give it to a yeast, would it convert it into methylfolate?
It doesn't need to. It can make folate straight from from yeast. For example, if there's rye flour and water, it increases the folate contents of that. So it actually grows its own folate. Now, the only problem with why you have to folic acid fortify things is because that's heat stable. Folates are damaged when you therefore bake the bread. Yeah, so
exactly.
the brain waves is to add the synthetic one back later on, which I think is a terrible idea.
Yeah.
And I think most people do.
Because the thing is I believe in the future, there's a lot of... So the big movement in food security in the world is looking at various forms of biotechnology, which is lab-grown food.
Yeah.
Okay, so with lab-grown food, you have the ability to get genetically modified yeasts and bacteria, feed them stuff to pump out specific vitamins and that sort of stuff. And then those vitamins then are then purified or actually made more pharmaceutical by adding to things to make them more stable or converting them into other things once they've been made by the yeast and bacteria. So for the future of food fortification and food security, there's a big opportunity there to use these sort of yeasts and bacteria to actually feed that, to create similar what's happening in our stomach. And following the laws of nature, if we provide them with the correct substrates, and not being too clever, but we provide them with their favourite foods in the right environment, they should have the ability to generate nutrients exactly the same way that our body would generate nutrients out of the substrates from our food. Or exactly the same as what happens in our gut. We talk about vitamin K, we talk about B12, those sort of things they're all made by microbiome in our gut, feeding on plant matter.
Sure.
So the future of food security and standardizing or ensuring that our food has a certain amount of nutrients might be fortifying our foods with nutrients made through natural fermentation or natural processes without having to go GMO sugars and without having to go GMO bugs. In a natural format, you could pretty much make a lot of these things.
Yeah, exactly. And we know that synthetic vitamins have their problems. There was a paper, I haven't told you about this is a bit without notice, published in JAMA today that's going to hit the news. Basically, if you take synthetic vitamins as antioxidants when you're having radiotherapy and chemo for breast cancer, it worsens the outcome.
I'm so glad someone's going to publish that.
It's published in the Journal of American Medical Association.
Because, man, it's my biggest challenge when people come to me and say, I've been diagnosed with cancer. And this is also my biggest pet hate where people don't communicate properly. So many people go to a naturopath or go to see someone, or they're trying stuff on the side and they lie to their oncologist and they don't tell the oncologist what they're taking because they're afraid the oncologist is going to think they're idiots or something like that. But it's really important. And that was the biggest common fault I've ever seen, because people don't realize. They go, I'm not going to do anything to interact with my radiation therapy. I'm just going to do juicing, or, someone said juicing's good, or this herb is really good, or I know turmeric's good for every stage of cancer. I read that somewhere once, especially with black pepper, and this is the sort of stuff that these people read. And I'm saying, look, you got to be very careful. We're not even going to help you create a protocol until I know what the oncologist's plan is.
Yes.
And and then I'll say, oh no, I don't have my appointment for a couple of weeks. I was just going to try to cure it in the meantime. And then you'll be just like, yeah, I know, but the problem is if you saturate or load up your body with something, you might be protecting your cancer. Radiation and chemotherapy damages tissues in cancer cells, or damages tissues.
Yeah, rapidly dividing tissues.
So the problem is the theory is the cancer cells are going to suck the stuff in faster because they're growing and rapidly dividing rapidly, as faster than anything else. What we don't want the cancer cells to also suck in our antioxidants and use those antioxidants to saturate their tissue with antioxidants prior to radiation coming in, because the antioxidants in the cancer cell will protect it from radiation damage, which stops it from killing it. And the other problem is you're just fortifying and strengthening up the cancer cells. They're getting it. They're faster than your healthy cells. And that's what we want them doing, is to be hungry, starving in poison, sucking in the chemo and the radiation. After it all, then you can go through and regenerate and repair. But you don't want to preload with antioxidants prior to radiation, because it doesn't bloody work.
Well, exactly. And that's why rosemary was such a good one for cancer, because it actually stops the detoxification process of the cancer cells. Yeah. The P pumps, or one of the pumps.
G-protein pump.
Yeah, or some one of the
I can't remember. Yeah, but that was a really cool one, because one of the ways that cancer cells become resistant to chemotherapy is increasing their ability to suck the poison straight back out.
Yes.
So suck it in one end and pump it out the other. And the rosemary blocked that pump at the other end. There's also reishi does that too. They got some other ones with reishi. Cool. But you have a look at turmeric's mechanism of action. Turmeric's mechanism of action is to slow down the cell cycle, slow down so it's slow, and protect the tissues from antioxidants. Unfortunately, if you oversaturate or load up on that prior to radiation, you're actually protecting the cancer cells from all those processes too. So
it's tricky stuff. And you know, I went to an oncology conference years ago in America, and they were giving people lactic acid just because the cancer cells feed a lot of sugar, and they pump out lactic acid at a concentration gradient. So there's a lot of lactic acid out there. They can't pump it out, and they die of lactic acidosis. It kills them. So
hang on.
Yeah, and then
I'm hoping people out there are just making the connection. What you just said.
What was that? What the connection about lactic acid?
No, cancer can't live in an acidic environment.
Well, it's...
Remember the statement? Oh, old mate won a Nobel Prize because he said cancer can't live in an alkaline environment.
Yeah, that's right.
And no cancer can live in an alkaline... Remember that?
That's right.
But the reality is it can't live in acid either.
Right. No, acid
typically things don't live in extreme environments.
Except the bug's called the extremophiles.
Oh, yeah, the extremophiles.
I love the name of that thing. It's quite funny.
Yeah, that's my actual webpage name.
Extremophile?
Yeah, you should see the videos on that. Much better podcast.
Yeah, so anyway, so they pump full of lactic acid. Can you think of any other way you could get lactic acid in your body without frigging putting an IV of lactic acid?
Maybe exercise.
That's how one of the mechanisms by which it's anti-cancer. It's funny because they say, acid grows cancer. Well, if you exercise, you get cancer.
Blood. Yeah. Inhibit angiogenesis, because without it getting a good oxygen supply, its mitochondrial respiration results in lactic acid of its own.
Yes.
And it can kill itself through self-destruct mechanisms by saying, you're not viable.
Yes.
You're a fool.
And
look at you. Take a look at yourself. That's the naturopathic philosophy around cancer, isn't it?
It's terrible.
Slow down the cell cycle. Take a look at you. Just slow down and stop and take a look at yourself.
Take a look at yourself.
And then if you realize you're a deformed Hmong cell, then you may as well take yourself out.
And usually it's via an enzyme called P53, which is a thing that slows down the cell cycle by inhibiting cycling. And all that. And things that upregulate P53, like turmeric and exercise and all these sorts of goodies. It's funny because you mentioned acid before. I just remember I gave you an apple this morning, which is going to acidify your gut when the short-chain fatty acids break down.
Thank goodness, because that'll alkalise my body.
What is that? It causes loads of butyric acid, propionic acid, valerianic acid in your gut, but that causes cancer. So do apples give you cancer of the gut? Or?
Where do the Saccharomyces live? What environment do they love? They live in the lower part of the bowel. So that's a very alkaline environment. Yes. And we need lots of acid in the stomach. So they survive the acid in the stomach. They can also survive the acid in a lot of brewing. Hey, you know how you said that bacon, the bread kills it.
Yeah.
But is it still alive in beer and wine and that sort of stuff that hasn't been heated up?
Eventually, what kills it is, you're going to love this, is ethanol.
Yeah,
because it dehydrates the cells, because eventually, that's why beer doesn't keep and explodes.
Yeah.
If the ethanol, which is typically, or alcohol, I'll keep it simple, grows to a percentage, and then at that strength, that's when that particular strain of that bug dies. So it might be about 5% for beer, or 4.7 or 4, whatever, and the alcohol goes to that level, and then the bug dies, and there's no more alcohol produced.
Yeah, right.
And they obviously know the formula and trick to that, and that's why if you don't
My dad didn't.
Did he make his own beer?
Oh, the constant bang, 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 bang. Especially if he goes, I might add a bit of honey or something to this one and try something.
A bit more sugar.
Oh, man.
And of course, sugar, of course, is the food for these bugs. And that's why, and that's not a problem. But that's when you get back to the candidas and these sort of ones where that's why the candida diet was a low sugar diet.
Yeah.
It had nothing to do with the yeast in bread. In fact, if you take the yeast from bread, like
it's going to prevent candida.
It's going to help it.
Worked out. So we want to eat the yeast.
Yes.
And we want it to colonize, but we want to look for the Saccharomyces. So look for foods that are traditionally made. Okay. We want things fermented through a normal process.
Sure.
We want our whole foods used. We don't want a heap of weird preservatives and that sort of stuff in our food, or we're going to have no viable yeasts. It's a good idea for everyone to do periodically, maybe take a supplement with Saccharomyces boulardii that's stable, that's been sold as a supplement to be live organisms growing inside you, just to colonize them and get them to grow. Anyone that's taken an antibiotic, then definitely just do this to prevent the candida and the clostridium and keep the guts a little bit under control. Any other instances? I mean, traveller's diarrhea is another good opportunity for this.
Kids diarrhea,
but traveller's diarrhea is kind of cool because if this is shelf stable, you can travel with a bloody thing, not having to keep it refrigerated, and you can stop some of that traveller's diarrhea when you head off to places with lower hygiene. You know?
Of course.
Even athletes that travel, I'd be inclined to kind of supplement with something like this during my travelling, because if you reduce gut-derived inflammation, you maintain performance. If you can prevent infections and diarrheas and that sort of stuff,
and stress inducing. Here's a funny thing. You're recommending the supplementation of this. Now, what ATP doesn't have is a Saccharomyces. So we're recommending a product that we don't make, isn't it?
Yeah, that's all right.
It's fine. And this is what's different about these sort of podcasts. It's for information purposes.
Oh, yeah. But this is a thing too. Some people can get it through foods. Other people can get it through supplementation. I really think it's important. Like we make essential fatty acid products, and I know for a fact that if someone's gut was loaded up with Saccharomyces boulardii, a good plant-based essential fatty acid product would work a hell of a lot better because it has the ability to interchange between the different forms depending on what your body needs. When a company's formulating a product like that, we try to pick what most people would need, but there's these missing links, like these bugs that have the ability to modulate it through.
It's just cool, isn't it?
Same with like candidas and all that sort of stuff, so we can wipe out those.
So when we get the email saying that the body can't make essential fatty acids, we can say, no, the body can't, but the bugs can.
Yeah, that's right. And if the bugs live inside your body, well, you kind
of can. You're a package, aren't you?
There's a compartment in
there. Yeah, there is a compartment. So I mean, there's really cool information on these. Heart failure, all these sorts of things. Crohn's disease, of course. So any of the inflammatory bowel disease it's beneficial for. It helps with intestinal permeability, so it helps heal that up. It's really good stuff.
I'm going to go get some now, actually. I'm going to go and take a course of it again. But, I reckon it's really cool, man. And I'm going to look more into this and keep an eye out for it because I've got a feeling, well, at the moment, you're going to see a lot of nutritional yeast products that are dead forms of Saccharomyces. And you'll see these vitamin complexes and, like you said before, the selenium that we use is from the yeasts. So basically what you'll find is in the future, you're going to see a lot more of those things. I want you to know that the nutritional yeasts are typically deactivated and dead. They're not having that probiotic effect.
No.
But as a dead bug, they have a modbiotic effect through cytokine modulation and that sort of stuff. So just keep an eye out for these sort of products. Now you've got a bit more understanding the difference between Saccharomyces and boulardii. You've got a bit of understanding between the live and the dead, the nutritional forms, how and when to supplement and why you would supplement and that sort of stuff. So hopefully it helped a bit and improves your quality of life.
And they're both good. We sort of, we've got to remember that they both do have health benefits for the human body.
Yeah,
they're not like one's really good and the other one's not so good. Cerevisiae is great for IBS and all sorts of things. Good for your skin here. Boosts Ep1 response. Increases interferon
and like
gamma.
We find in natural medicine, you want the diversity. Multiple different forms of things have different benefits. So.
There was something funny here. The Cerevisiae actually increases and decreases interleukin-6 and tumor necrosis factor, depending on what the body needed.
Well, there you go. There was a study
with the references.
So we talk about that immune seesaw being the immune system being like a seesaw. So it has the ability to flatten your seesaw, whichever direction it changes.
Absolutely, it actually helps.
Anti-allergy, anti-infectious, antifungal, anti-parasitic.
It's really
and it creates
so
a lot
good.
of nutrients. It's a really cool thing.
It is. It's a wonderful nutrient.
And supplies enzymes we can't.
Yeah.
That's wicked, eh?
And also it is a yeast. So don't go yeast and think of yeast infections. I mean, it's like bacteria. Some of them will kill you and some of them are very, very good for you.
Yeah.
in the olden days, the Pasteur days, they thought these bugs are evil and we have to kill them all. Now we know that the bugs are our friends and we need them and want them. And same with yeasts.
Yeah, and if you're killing off something's going to take its place.
Exactly. C. diff. If
yeah,
you've got
exactly.
Place. And this is huge. I mean, this is a really huge problem in hospitals. That Beck comes saying, "Oh, yeah, we had another C. diff." Well, what do they call them? Code Browns. I don't want to go into detail, but that's what they call them if there's an explosion in the bed, which they don't like. They really don't like.
Bet.
No, it's bad for all concerned, not just the nurses.
They run for the code blue towards it and run away from the code brown.
That's exactly right.
Oh, well, let's stop.
Let's stop with that. Highlight.
Well, thanks everyone for listening. I hope you get a lot out of that. Keep in touch and we'll do another one next week on something else.
Absolutely.
Is that like I did the worst intro and the worst outro.
Outro. We're going to do it on something else.
Yeah, do it at
it could be something else.
What we say, accept what we say.
No, absolutely. It's been fun talking about yeast today.
No, it's good fun. We kept it clean.
Yeah, absolutely.
And thanks for listening, everyone, and putting up with us.
Yes. No adults in the room.
All right.
Thank you.
Bye. Welcome to the ATP Project. You're with your host, Matt. Today, you poor buggers. And Steve.
That's it.
I just laughed at. Let's start this again.